Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elise and this is my mystical bookshelf. And today I have a 2-book video. So there's 2 books I'm going to talk about because they're in the same series, so I figured I might as well make them in the same video because it's book 1 and 2. And this series it's free on Audible if you have their Audible subscription. And the series is called The Sugar Shack Witch Mysteries. And the first 2 books are Sprinkles and Sea Serpents and Mermaids and Meringue. And technically the second book is, like, Mermaids and Meringue is technically the 3rd book in the series, but it's like second overall because what they consider book 2 is like a 1 hour long short story. So I didn't bother listening to that one because it was only 1 hour long, and that's definitely not enough for me to listen to in my workday because I don't like to switch between books too often while I'm working if I don't have to. So I'm going to talk about technically book 1 and 3, even though really they take place like one right after the other, and like the novella, I guess, which would be considered book 2. I don't think it really has much impact on the story because I listened to Sprinkles and Sea Serpents and Mermaids and Meringue back to back, and I didn't really have problem like with continuity or anything. It was pretty easy for me to follow along. And let me start by saying these books, they're amazing. I really like them a lot. And I'm so glad that they're included with my Audible subscription because I only get 1 credit a month. And since I've been listening to audiobooks like nonstop recently, I've been really trying to find some books that are included with my subscription so that I don't have to buy more credits if I don't have to. So it's pretty nice that I don't have to. And so basically this book series is about Ella, and her full name is Rosella, but a lot of people call her Ella. That's her nickname. And she's a witch, and technically she lives in the human world for a while in the first book, and we kind of pick up in the first book where she moves back home. And the reason she moves back home is because she got fired from her job for something that she didn't do, which I thought was really unfair. And she used to be a journalist, and they thought that she, like plagiarized something, when really she didn't. She was framed by one of her competitor coworkers who was like kind of mean to her. And so she was a journalist in the human world, and she was like making it big time. She was engaged to someone. She was really happy. And then she got fired from her job, and things didn't work out with her fiance. And the main thing that didn't work out with her fiance was because she couldn't tell him that she was a witch. I guess you can't tell anybody in this realm, this magical world that they live in. Like, humans are not allowed into the magical realms, and like they don't realize that these types of people exist in this book universe. So that was kind of a caveat for her. And she was hoping that she would never have to go back home because Rosella is considered a cursed witch, which I think is interesting because I don't really think she's cursed. She was just born on a weird day. She was born on March 21st, and in this book universe there's like different categories of witches, and the different categories have to deal with like different elements and stuff. So some witches are water witches, some witches are fire witches, some witches are earth witches, and then some witches are air witches. So it's kind of like zodiac signs, I guess. That's kind of what comes to mind when I say that out loud. It's like how zodiac signs are categorized. And Rosella, being born on March 21st, in this universe, she is in between being an earth witch and a water witch, which I guess is like bad, even though it doesn't seem like it's bad. But the only thing that's weird with her is her powers are kind of weird, but because earth witches have specific powers and water witches have specific powers, but with Rosella, she's kind of in between both of them, so her powers are kind of like wonky, and she can talk to animals, basically, which I think would be really cool. So she's like Dr. Dolittle in this book universe, and she can talk to animals, which I think is really interesting, and that's something that kind of caught my eye at first when I was listening to this. I was like, oh, she can talk to animals, that's really neat. And so she uses her like talking to animal powers throughout this series, and it's a mystery series. This is actually like a true mystery series. Like each book has a different mystery that they have to solve, which I thought was interesting. And it's not really categorized as a romance. The romance is kind of like on the back burner with these book series, which I thought was interesting, and I didn't know if I would like it as much, but it's very plot driven, which I thought was cool, and I really liked that a lot. I kind of liked that the romance was in the back burner. I don't normally go for books like that, but this one was really well done. And so we start off with her going back to Winterspell. That's the name of her hometown. And like I said, she's considered a cursed witch. So when she comes back to town, people are like all gossiping about her and like whispering about her. Like, oh my gosh, Rosella's back. Did you hear that Rosella came back? Blah, blah, blah. And her family owns this bakery called the Sugar Shack. And I think that's where the Sugar Shack Witch Mysteries gets its name, because Rosella, for a while, especially in the first and the second book, she has to work for her family's bake shop because she doesn't have any other means of income. So she works with her sisters, and she has two sisters. I think if they're both younger than her. One's name is Jasmine, and I can't remember the other one's name. I thought I had it written down, but it doesn't look like I do. But and it's not important, really. I just like to remember the character names when I'm talking about it, but it's okay. So she works in the bakery with her two sisters, and her grandma is also a part of the story. And her mom and dad are like the head of it, but she is working for them for the time being. And the first mystery that we encounter is, it's pretty interesting. It has to do with the title, Sprinkles and Sea Serpents. So there's apparently, supposedly, in this book universe, a sea serpent that takes women, like, in their mid-30s, I guess, so like young adult women, who takes in adult women, and they go missing. And that's the big thing in Winterspell right now, is these women have gone missing, and they all think it's because of this sea serpent that lives in the lake in their town, which really, it's not, has nothing to do with that. The sea serpent is actually innocent, and the only reason Rosella knows that is because she can talk to the sea serpent. So I thought that was really cool that she could figure out the mystery based on her powers and how to figure it out from there. So she talks to the sea serpent, and the sea serpent says, I don't eat humans, I don't like humans, I don't like the way they taste, I'm not going to eat them, why would I take these women? And so she clears the sea serpent's name, and then the sea serpent gets set free from the Winterspell town, which I thought was also cool. And Rosella is able to do this just before that. There's a monster hunter who has to go after the sea serpent, and his name is Orion. And Orion is technically Rosella's love interest in this book series, but their relationship doesn't really kick off until Mermaids and Meringue. So they're kind of just going back and forth. They have this kind of love-hate relationship. It's like enemies to lovers, basically, but it's not as involved. It's not really the forefront of the story. It's more like on the back burner. Like Rosella, he kind of admits that she likes Orion, and Orion definitely does like Rosella. It's very apparent. He's definitely the one that falls first in this book, in this relationship trope. But Rosella doesn't really want to commit to anyone because she had her fiance, and she's kind of still working through that emotion and those emotions in her life. She doesn't really want to be in a relationship with anyone, so she kind of turns Orion down, and she kind of finds him annoying at first, which I can understand why. He was kind of pushy in the beginning. He's very like suave and kind of arrogant, I guess, but he grew on me as the book went on, and he definitely grew on me in the second book. But so they are basically a duo in this first series, in this first book, and in the second book. They kind of just do these mysteries together. After the first one, they kind of just become like this duo who does things. And so they figure this out, and the big spoiler, I didn't see this coming, actually. I feel like sometimes with cozy mysteries, I can kind of tell how the story is going to go, but for this one, I really couldn't tell where it was going to go. And it ended up being like one of the witches in the town. She's like this middle-aged woman, and apparently her daughter died, and she wanted to bring her daughter back to life, I guess, and she was trying to do this blood magic spell, and she had to capture a witch of every element. So she captured like 3 witches already, and she was gonna go for the 4th one, but Rosella stopped her just in time, thankfully. So she didn't end up doing this blood magic spell, but that was basically the big plot twist, is that it was someone that Rosella had become friends with because she joined this running group, and it was one of the ladies in the running group, and I totally had no idea. But the only reason she found out, which I thought was super funny, is she found out from this woman's dog. Like, this woman has a dog whose name is Fluffy, and Fluffy was like, this woman's crazy. She's got all these other women in the basement, and I'm scared. I'm afraid she's gonna hurt me or something. And I just thought it was really cute that Rosella found out about it from this dog. So like her powers play like a big role in this book series, which I think is so cool. And it's really the guiding force for everything. And I thought it was really interesting and very well done. And this book series is narrated by Amanda Ronconi. And Amanda Ronconi is a really great narrator. Like, I love her a lot. It seems like Danielle Garrett and her are kind of partnered, because I was looking at Danielle Garrett's other titles, and all of her books are narrated by Amanda Ronconi. So in the future, when I want to listen to more books, because I think more of her books are available through the Audible premium membership for free, I'm going to listen to pretty much all of her books probably, because I really enjoyed listening to Amanda Ronconi. She's a really fun narrator. She really is lighthearted and brings out the best in the characters and the best in this book. And there was a lot of parts where I was like listening at work, and I'm like, this is really funny. Like, I was giggling to myself. And I'm like, people are probably wondering, what am I listening to that's making me laugh? But nobody ever asked me about it, so I wasn't worried about it. But yeah, so that was the first book, and the first book, the mystery got all solved, and all the women got set free. So no women actually died, even though they had said they had died. They just were kidnapped. So that was cool. I was glad that everything worked out the way it was supposed to. And in the second book, it takes place after Sprinkles and Sea Serpents. And like I said, there's like this other part where it's a 1-hour novella, but it wasn't really touched upon in this Mermaids in Meringue, so I wasn't really worried about it. But so the second book in the series takes place after New Year's and after Christmas and stuff like that, and it's like dead of winter and winter spell right now. And the second mystery that takes place is there's a mermaid woman who is missing. I feel like this is a common theme, like people go missing in winter spell, and Rosella has to figure it out. So Rosella and Orion are on the case for this second mystery, and they team up and like pretend to be a couple to figure out, they pretend to be a rich couple basically to figure out how people are getting these mermaids, because mermaids are apparently treated like not human, which I thought was weird because they're basically part human. They're treated more like animals and like captives, which I thought was interesting, and it made me kind of sad that they were treated so poorly. But I think towards the end that Rosella made sure that mermaids had more rights after this, so I liked that part and I really enjoyed that. But they have to find this mermaid, and apparently she was cursed. She used to be a witch, and then she got turned into a mermaid. And the only reason she got turned into a mermaid and was cursed was because she found out that the bar she was working for, and like, this was really, I was like, wow, this is very interesting. Like, when I heard it, it was because there was a vampire mafia in this bar, like, taking place, and the girl had seen too much, I guess, and she wasn't supposed to see any of it, and there was like all this bad stuff happening with the vampire mafia. And it doesn't really go into too much detail, but I just thought it was funny that it was a vampire mafia, because like, that is so original. I never even heard of that. But that's why she gets cursed, because she knew too much stuff about what was going on with this mafia. And then as a mermaid, she couldn't speak. But Rosella, again, has this really cool power where she can talk to creatures. And apparently, since mermaids are on a different level than humans, Rosella can talk to them through her mind, which I thought was very interesting. So she like tries to think at this woman, mermaid, former witch creature, and she was like, tell me everything. And this woman, I guess she kind of had an amnesia spell too with being cursed into being a mermaid, because she couldn't remember anything, which I thought was interesting, and it was kind of sad. And she didn't remember how she got turned into a mermaid. She didn't remember any of it. And Rosella and Orion have to figure out why this happened and how this happened. And they go on a big adventure with this one. I thought it was really involved, and it was definitely a great story. And they figure out all of this stuff. They go to the bar, they talk to some people, they figure out why the vampire mafia had turned this woman into a mermaid. And Rosella and Orion, at the end of this book, they kind of get together as a couple. They are officially a couple by the end of the book, which I thought was cute. I was glad that they finally, or at least Rosella, I was glad that Rosella finally figured out she had feelings for Orion, because I think they've got great chemistry together. And if you listen to this book, I think you will agree. They have really great chemistry, they're very funny, and I think they're a great duo. And I'm really glad that everything gets worked out in this second mystery, because the woman ends up being able to get turned back from a mermaid into a witch, and she gets all her memories back, and she goes and she meets her mom and dad again, and she's able to remember everything. And she's been like gone for like 2 years, so the fact that she has this really nice reunion with her mom and dad, I thought was really sweet. And I was really happy that she was able to get her memories back, because when she first turned back into a witch, she couldn't remember anything. Like, she couldn't remember that she had a mom and a dad. She couldn't remember her sister. She could barely remember her name, which I thought was interesting. So I was really happy that everything worked out with that. And the only caveat with the Sugar Shack Witch Mysteries is some of the books are held by you need to use 1 credit, and some of them are like, you can listen to it if you have this Audible membership. So the 5th and the 6th book, you need a credit to buy them. So I'll have to wait until I get my next credit to listen to the rest of the book series, which kind of made me sad, which I can see why they put it behind the paywall after that, because it is a really good book series. And sometimes I feel like the free books on Audible aren't super interesting, so I was excited that this was actually a good book series to listen to and actually like worth listening to, because I've tried listening to some free books on Audible and some of them just weren't very good, but this one was definitely on point. I loved it. I gave both of these books 5 stars and they were definitely interesting. I would totally recommend listening to them or reading them if you have the physical copies with you. I just feel like listening to audiobooks is more convenient for me, but they are definitely worth the listen. And Amanda Ronconi is a great narrator, and Danielle Garrett is a great author. And those were my thoughts on them. I totally recommend them, and I think they were very fun and lighthearted, and I would love to hear your thoughts on them if you've read them or if you want to read them. Please leave me a comment down below. I would love to talk to you in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my subscribers, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, friends.